Gran Torino. Released in 2008, this film starts plainly with the production companies, then a scene in a church where veteran Walt Kowalski is standing at his wife's funeral. His grandchildren enter, the youngest is wearing street clothing, and the eldest, dressed likewise, is also flashing body and face jewelry. The sons mutter to one another that their father is always disappointed in others, thinking that the world is still the 50s. Kowalski's granddaughter plays with her cellular phone, and later at the wake, the boys decide to nose through his army trunk, where it's revealed that he served in Korea. The granddaughter, like a brat, prefers to sit in an armchair like a princess, while her grandfather gets folding chairs from the basement. She only takes an interest enough to talk to him when she notices things of his that she wants for herself. Kowalski is racist against all East Asian cultures, but the young male neighbor of his, named Tao, is good, quiet, overlooked boy. He's burdened with the chores that his older gangbanger cousin, Spider, considers women's work. Meanwhile, his older sister seems to care about him enough. The Catholic priest, who befriended Mrs. Kowalski, finally gets a word with Walt over drinks at Kowalski's favorite bar. There we come to understand that Kowalski doesn't really understand life as much as he understands death, due to having served in Korea. But the priest isn't happy with Kowalski when Spider tries to take Tao away to be initiated into his gang. Race plays heavily into this, as does patriarchy. After Kowalski saves Tao's older sister, Sue, from being hurt by some African-American young men, she gets through to Walt quite a bit, and he finds quickly that his Hmong neighbors, a nation of people from the hill country of Southeast Asia, have their hearts and minds in the right place, compared to the other young men he sees, and is even surprised when he sees Tao help a neighbor across the street with her groceries, after the bag tears. For his birthday, his kids get him all of these impersonal gifts for geriatrics, a fold-away grabbing tool, and a telephone with large buttons. I always wondered what one was supposed to grab the grabber with if it was out of reach. These kinds of gifts make a person feel like you didn't put any thought into the gift, but just got them something to get them something. The kids talk to Walt about moving to a retirement home after he tells them where they can shove it. They make a dash for their car with their gifts in hand. If you have an elderly parent and they are able to care for themselves, don't pretend they're too blind, crippled, or senile to take care of themselves. And don't tell them they shouldn't live in their own homes anymore. It's a lousy thing to do. Rather, make calls to see how they are, and share your life with them because you love them, not because you feel obliged to. Moreover, if you want to make sure they're doing well, spend time with them and help them to be able to take better care of themselves, not to feel like invalids or infants. When Sue invites Kowalski over to enjoy some food and beer at a community gathering, he finds that the Hmong ways are very different from Eurocentric ways, and after committing some faux pas, he thinks their ways are nuts, but at least understands, and thinks to ask if it's okay to take second helpings of food. I should point out that twice now Kowalski has drawn a firearm on people. The first time is when others are on his property and he has warned them to keep off. The second was in defense of Sue, who was being harassed by the young men, after he indicates that he has a pistol, and will use it. An interesting point about these young men that are causing trouble is that their machismo flows from a need to feel intimidating, but Kowalski quickly shows that he's not intimidated, and that's what angry, frustrated young people understand, that being able to pick on weaker people, or people who don't want to hurt others, doesn't make them stronger, smarter, or better, and that in 30 years, when they've wasted their life, and are living in a slum, being pecked at by kids no worse than they were, they will realize what a difference they could have made if they hadn't chosen the path that they did. That, like in A Clockwork Orange or Catch-22, the system is what you make it, and that the way to win the game is to not play it, seeing beyond the choices offered to you. Walt tells Tao that he's a pussy, meaning pusillanimous, and it's true. But he also quickly notices that the Hmong women are strong and forceful when they have to be, and that the men either show false machismo or they are humble in their work and service to others, like Tao. He notes to himself that he has more in common with these strangers than he does with his own kids, who have become complacent in spoiling themselves and others, and not appreciating having enough in life, exploring the only routes available to them. After Tao is told to work for Kowalski to repay him for trying to steal his Gran Torino, he decides to have Tao work on fixing up the property of the house across the street, and Tao's own house, so that the neighborhood looks nicer, and little by little, day by day, Tao fixes and repairs the outsides of the homes and gets them looking nicer. Walt gives his son an uncharacteristic phone call where he asks how his son's family is doing, but seems to be having a hard time saying what he wants to talk about, which seems to be related to a medical file. The son, caught up in his own life, feels like Walt is a burden, and it's clear that the family has taken this idea to heart as they pass the buck of who will pick up the phone to talk with him. Finally, Walt and I have something in common that we understand: pulling an old freezer out of a basement on a dolly. Only when I did it, I didn't have help, and the dolly had flat tires. Walt gets Tao a job working construction when Spider and his thugs decide to beat him up and take the tools and equipment that Tao needs for his job. So Walt goes over and roughs up one of them, but is clearly the worse for wear. Spider and his gang do a drive-by on Tao's house, while others snatch, beat up, and rape Sue. Walt loses it and is visited by the priest. The priest actually expresses that he's pissed off about what happened too, and Walt offers him a beer, and tells the priest that he can call him Walt finally instead of Mr. Kowalski. Tao is naturally incensed, and is in outrage, wants to go off half-cocked. But Walt tells him that they have to plan. He puts his plans together and does some bucket list items, mowing the lawn one last time, smoking in the bath, gets a straight razor shave, a tailored suit, and receives confession. The priest knows that Walt is going to take vengeance and kill Spider and his gang, but what he does instead is, in a messianic manner, goes over to the gang's house and antagonizes them into shooting him, leading to their arrest. Kowalski even falls into a position like that of Christ on the cross. At the funeral, the Kowalskis expect that their eldest daughter will receive the Gran Torino, but not surprisingly, Tao gets it, and takes Walt's dog Daisy for a drive along the lakeshore, as Eastwood sings the start of the song Gran Torino. In the end, we discover that Kowalski's great pains are kissing another woman while he was married, not knowing his own sons, and in a confession made only to Tao, Walt killed a Korean boy about Tao's age who was surrendering to him. Kowalski got a silver star for it, and it's been a poison pill in his heart for his whole life since. He dies a death in sacrifice, but also in the same way that the boy he killed died, unarmed and killed by dumb boys. But Spider and his guys are gone for good, and will pay for their crimes. What's more, Walt died in defense of innocence, and doesn't care much about his belongings for after he's dead, except the Gran Torino. Something from a good time in his life that he has kept to himself, lovingly maintaining and keeping it, and only giving it to someone worthy. Gran Torino gets a 5 out of 5.